we're live. Welcome to the Session Conversations podcast. My name is Aaron Amaya.
And you got Claude Edward.
Welcome to episode 3, everybody. Leadership, creativity, all that good stuff. Claude, how have you been, man?
I'm good, bro. Really, really good. Catching up on some reading. It's flooding out here in Houston, man. The weather is horrible. Hurricane season.
Oh man,
Yeah.
you're safe though, right?
Oh yeah, we're safe. We're just kind of trying to figure out, do we stay here or do we kind of go and try to swim and get something to eat?
Oh
Because
shoot.
I'm definitely not prepared.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Especially being from Chicago.
Exactly right. They're like, man, you got to get your water. Make sure you put a lot of gas. Like hurricane season is pretty intense, bro. Guess that's why you got to be prepared, right?
Yeah, no, I heard that. I'm, obviously in California, so out here we get earthquakes and traffic.
Right.
So yeah, so
that's what y'all specialize in.
Yeah, it's like you gotta plan ahead. If you're driving out to certain areas because of this specific freeway, you gotta plan like an hour ahead. And then, you just gotta make sure you got like water and stuff,
right.
like
in the car.
Yeah, exactly. You got to make sure you got your podcast set up.
Right. It's like, hey, if you ever make it to Cali, you're going to be in traffic. So just
yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Right. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. But you said you've been reading. What have you been reading lately?
So I remember last time we talked, I was telling you I was picking back up The Enemies of the Heart.
That's right.
Which, reading and I don't know if he says it's greater than religion or if it's like over religion, but there's a book that's like Jesus basically is greater than religion. I don't know if you read that. I forget the author.
I'm not even familiar with that book.
Super good book. I'll shoot the author on our next podcast. Maybe we can talk about it, but he's really just kind of breaking down, like what it means to really, really like love and follow Jesus versus what you sometimes see in church. It's just a really, really good, interesting read, man.
Oh, cool. No, and God knows we need a lot of that right now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh man, right now, you know what? I haven't really been reading too much as I would like to.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a lot of podcasts right now, different things like that. But
what kind?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Well, right now, I'm still doing a lot of like Tim Ferriss stuff. But I think the one honestly, I've been doing a lot of like just like sermon stuff. I've been catch up a lot of sermons.
Yeah.
A lot of TD Jake stuff, which has been
nice.
It's been great for me just because I'm kind of in that like that moment in life right now where you're kind of like in need of a breakthrough, just mentally, in life, and just the pressures of life, pretty much. And yeah, just some of the sermon series that he's been covering recently. He covered something a couple weeks ago about impact, and he was explaining the difference between a shadow boxer and a real boxer. And he was like, a lot of us don't even realize, but we're actually shadow boxing. Like we're swinging as hard as we can, but there's no impact.
Wow.
So yeah, so when I looked at it that way, I kind of took a step back and realized, like, man, I've been shadow boxing for a hot minute. Like, it's time for some impact. It's time for all those things that I'm putting energy to. You need to align those things with God in order to have real impact in your life. So,
man, that's huge. And I know that's not what this podcast is about, but we got to flesh that out, bro. I got to hear more about that.
No, absolutely, man. We'll have to get back into that stuff. But for our guests out there, something that Claude and I have been talking about recently is having guests on the show. So that's something that we plan on doing. And in this episode, I had a chance to interview a good friend of mine. His name's Darren LaCour. He's an actor, involved in all kinds of other like things and community based projects. And he'll cover some of that stuff, talking about real estate, how to empower those who may be real estate illiterate. I don't know if I pronounced that right, literate, whatever. So
tomato.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he kind of just brings me up to speed as far as like real estate, like the way I was raised. it was always kind of like, if you buy a house, that's the American dream, and then that's it. He's kind of explaining like a whole different like, way of like how to make, how to put you in a situation where money can actually work for you instead of you working for money type of thing.
So I'll be listening for sure, bro.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man, for sure. So, we're both in the same boat, raising young families, and that stuff's important for our audience. Those are questions, those are conversations. I'm always in the middle. So we had a good conversation. We went out actually on the 5K. We ran. He's featured in a lot of like Instagram videos where I post. I call them 5 a.m. 5Ks because we'll have random thoughts and then we just start recording them. So
nice.
Yeah, so same thing here. We got done and we were talking about having them as a guest, and I'm like, let's record this episode at the park. So that's kind of what we did, and came out great. I was happy with it. So hope you enjoy it, Claude.
Dude, without further ado, let's do it.
All right, cool, man. Well, again, this is Aaron.
And Claude Edward.
Claude Edward, and yeah, man, thank you for listening to Session Conversations, episode 3. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
All right, what's Aaron here? What's up, Darren? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Just got off that 5K, man. What did you do this morning?
Oh, I ran a 5K too, man. I was about to quit, and
I wasn't asking you. I was asking the audience. What did you do this morning?
Oh, there you go. No, I was gonna reply by saying that you got me to run this morning. I think I told you like, oh, let's run at 6 a.m. this morning. It was about 6:30, and then I was just like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go now. And I get that text message saying you ready, so I knew how to get out there. So, but yeah, man, how's everything going though?
Well, right now I'm a little chatty, man. I don't know about you, but pre-workout makes me a beast, right? And I was planning on going to the gym until I found out I had somebody to run with me, man. So
that's cool.
We worked it out.
Right, there you go, man. Everybody needs a partner to get them to do something. So, what kind of pre-workout are you taking?
Performance. Yeah, my one of our neighbors actually. We were at the gym together. Where I bumped into him at like 4 a.m.
Right.
He's a little jacked.
Yeah.
So it was like, man, what are you doing?
Right.
But honestly, I'm always on the hunt for a new pre-workout because I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine and all the extra stuff, so I get dizzy. And he said that he doesn't really crash or anything weird. So this was my journey on my 10th pre-workout, and it's actually pretty nice.
What flavor is it?
It's like cool, vibrant blue or something. I literally, when I saw it, I was like, man, I drink alcohol that tastes like alcohol. Well, I don't really need my pre-workout to be all sweet and stuff, but it's the cool berry blue, whatever.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, back when I was taking a lot of pre-workout, I forgot what I was taking. And they always have these weird like icicle blue or very berry blast or whatever. Yeah, and then you drink them and they don't really taste like that.
But it's trying to get you past the fact that you're drinking Sweet and Low.
There you go.
Splenda,
because it's with a little bit of crack in it.
Right. Get you moving.
Yeah, there you go. No, but I like what you said earlier. You said that the neighbor, he looks jacked, and you asked him like, what is he doing? So I think something that's interesting is like to me when I hear that, I think a friend of mine once told me that when he was in really good shape. And then he's like, man, I'm like a walking billboard. He's like, because he's a personal trainer. So he's like, I'm a walking billboard. He's like, because people will ask me, all the time, like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, what movie is it? I think it's Wolf on Wall Street. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Leonardo DiCaprio's character is having breakfast. And what's the other guy's name? The guy with the curly hair.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. No, actually, the other guy, the younger guy. He plays his best friend in the movie.
It's been a while.
He was in Superbad. He's been Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill. Yeah. So Jonah Hill walks up to him and he says, "Is that your car?" And then he goes, and Leonardo DiCaprio's like kind of like wiping his mouth. He's like chewing.
Like that retainer.
Yeah.
Is that your car?
Yeah. Is that your car? Is that your car outside? And he's like, like kind of just like casual. He's like, that car outside. That's your car. And he goes, And then he says, "How much money do you make?" And I'm not like 100% sure on the amount, but I think it was like I think he's like 25,000 like last month or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you show me a pay stub for 25,000. He's like, I will come work for you right now.
Right.
So again, I think that the vehicle And I think the great built on somebody, like it's a walking billboard.
Yeah.
So I think
that's for sure. I mean, but you know, there's the schools of thought around that. Like there's the fake it till you make it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Some people, you know, make the wrong decisions on purchases or portray a particular potential persona. But you know, I'm gonna steal from somebody right now. I can't remember who I was watching the other day or whatever podcast it was. But basically, he believes in fake it till you make it, but not the part where you're doing ill stuff to fake it. But you know, but there has to be some invisible confidence that you have to walk with, and you have to see yourself in certain roles, and sometimes that projects on the people that the audience or the customer that you want, but right. you have to be focused on that part of it. You can't be just focused on the, you know, I got the $100,000 car or the, you know, $1 million house or right. whatever the point is, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty, you know, going to what you're saying, it's pretty important to have that, you know, to model who you are, brand who you are,
right.
And you know, ultimately, if I bring it back to Christianity, you know, the people that I'm drawn the most to are people who likely have that godlike energy in them, and
right, yeah,
you know, like you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man.
you know,
hopefully, I'm not faking it till I make it.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
we're born sinners,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
you know?
yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely.
You know, we'll never be as perfect as Christ, but you know, we're striving to be that every day.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. It's all trying to be a better human. What's your opinion? Because you're talking about this. Like, what's your take on like some people who may be like what would you say is somebody who's like super in debt, or somebody who like, you know, they have the fancy car, they have this like really nice place, but they are borrowing money to get there, or they're trying to like maybe they're trying to put on a show for people,
right?
And you know, it goes back to like I think like the Instagram culture where
right.
people are just like, you know, they're setting up these pictures, and you know, behind the scenes type stuff, you realize that it's not really what you realize.
Well, you know, one of the favorite books out there is Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it, you know, I never really understood the concept that it takes money to make money until, you know, reading that book, and it, you know, went deep into liabilities versus assets. So if you're out there buying liabilities and that's what your debt represents, you know, I mean, I'm guilty victim right now. You know, I got a really nice car that, you know, I bought at a time where it was like, it's gonna be a drop in the bucket for what I'm making.
Right.
But even right now, that, you know, I further understand, you know, how I could have been applying that money. I'm trying to get out from under that car. You
right.
know?
Yeah.
So long story short, you know, for people who are going into debt, you know, just making sure that you're going into debt for the right reasons. You know, because. If you want to grow your business, you got to, you know, you got to work with a bank. It's not it's not always
right.
going to happen organically to where you've got this $1 million idea overnight.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but what you can do is, you know, kind of remove yourself from the process. And one of my favorite books is my father-in-law passed this on to me, is the E-Myth. And within the E-Myth, they talk about all of the roles of business, and really, you have to step back and, you know, bring in a marketer, bring in a general manager, bring in, you know, all of these different operational roles in order to get something done.
Right.
And really, if you're growing your business, sometimes maybe you do have to get, you know, that run rate from the bank of 12 months of paying these people salaries, but you have to have a clear vision in place and procedures that's going to hit those target goals every month. And if you're not hitting those target goals, you know, got to go back to the drawing board. But it sometimes in those scenarios, it takes money to make money.
Right.
And, you know, and you should consider going into debt to get where you're going.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny because when I was not as educated when it came to finances, it was more of like, you know, if you don't have it, you don't buy it type of thing. And there's totally like a truth to that. But launching your own business, getting things off the ground, you start understanding that there's good debt and then there's bad debt. Like I thought debt was always a bad word. Like, you're in debt. Like
that's how I grew up.
Yeah, like, oh, you're in debt. Like, oh man, you're a loser. You know what I mean?
You're not going in debt.
Yeah,
you know?
do not go in debt. That whole thing. And now you're starting to realize that there's good debt. I know you know a lot more about that than I do, but do you want to like break that down? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, you know, if good debt or bad debt.
Well,
I guess I kind of went on into bad debt already. You know, the car. You know, the two worst, largest purchases I've ever made were my vehicle, you know, and instead of getting the one that I had fixed or, you know, just riding
He
it
drives
out.
a really nice car, by the way, guys.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all good.
Anytime I need a ride to go get some eggs or gas or milk, Darren, can I get a ride real quick? I do remember you gave me a ride to Little Caesars, and you let me drive that spaceship. But go ahead, though.
Yeah. But
never been in a spaceship before.
Right, you know. But you know, I made some bad debt purchases, but I made my first true good debt purchase. You know, a little about a year ago. Listening to Bigger Pockets. You know, shout out to Brandon Turner and David Green and Josh Dorkin, those guys. Listening to that show, it gave me the confidence to go out, find an investment property. I found it through a source where I could get it discounted. They talk about the BRRRR principle, you know, buy, rehab, rent, and then refinance. And so, you know, I went out and I found it. You know, I get a decent bonus most summers or whatever for my W-2 job, and I took that and purchased the property with 20% down. And I went through my network in this town, and I found a pretty great guy, great contractor, and he went to work on the property. So I bought it in September, and by January. I had completely renovated it, beautiful wood floors, some Formica countertops, throughout all the toilets, so people could really feel like they were coming into like a new construction or something. And, I found a property manager, and all this is long distance, by the way. We live in California and I invest in Louisiana. And from that, it was like, it was scary, right? Because now I got this mortgage on this house. I've spent, like over I don't know, probably $35,000, between the down payment and, I basically made the contractor my employee through that time. So I was giving him $1,500 a week, and this is like from doing nothing to like all of a sudden I've got this employee that, I want to make sure that he's fed, so I'm giving him $1,500 a week to do the renovations. I went out and I got a Home Depot credit card, and by January I spent all of that capital, and now it's time to find a tenant. Got a property manager. Property manager actually, they told me it takes about a month in this market. So a month went by. Is end of February. I'm sweating bullets.
Right.
I'm like, look, hey man, we got it listed for this amount, but if you find somebody who's on the fence, tell them we'll give them $100 a month discount. And they told me, I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. It's a nice property. Wow. And they kind of kept me at that price. And, the end result was March 15th.
Yeah. Somebody
came with the down payment.
Yeah.
And they took over the property. So I went from having and this is the debt scenario, I went from spending, $40,000 to get into that property, and having a $380 mortgage. I'm putting the numbers out there so people can understand, like, what are you spending $380 on that you could potentially go out and buy a house with? You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, absolutely.
So so I went from
new pair of J's, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went from that to a tenant that's paying $1,250 a month.
Wow.
Right. So that takes care of the mortgage. That takes care of the taxes. That takes So now. Yes, I do have a mortgage on that property. And anybody who's in California can be like, this dude is tripping. He's lying. I got a mortgage on this property for $60,000. Yeah. Right. Because I put 20% down and did all this other. The property's worth about $150,000, and I got a lot of equity. So my net worth went up. Which is an important thing. If you want to go out there and buy a Chick-fil-A or something like that, your net worth has to be like greater than $400,000, and it doesn't have to be in liquid cash. It can be in equity in businesses and things like that.
I didn't even know
that. So through that, here we are, and that's a good debt scenario. So right now I spend all of my time, trying to find other ways to find more money. Understanding. That money is a product.
Right.
A lot of people in real estate investing, they call it debt service. So what's the debt service cost? How much does it cost for me to hold that money? And how fast can I turn that money into a smaller, 30-year mortgage and stuff like that?
Right.
Anyways, that's good debt.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Thanks for breaking that down. I think, and see, the interesting thing, I think the way I grew up was, and I'm sure a lot of people out there can relate, that, like hearing this type of like conversation or just the way you break things down before, it can be intimidating for some people. And I remember when you first were telling me like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and I'm investing this much, and to me it was kind of like, shoot, like what, like it's kind of to me it sounds like it can be a little overwhelming, intimidating, but at the same time, it's still one of those like no risk, no reward type thing.
It's a mindset shift.
Yeah,
it's a mindset shift to think, oh, I'm gonna pay a certain amount of money for some money versus I'm gonna pay a certain amount of money for a car, or I'm gonna pay a certain amount of money for some alcohol, or I'm gonna pay a certain amount of money for, I don't know, new furniture. That's something that you might spend $200 a month on. $10,000 worth, whatever the case may be. Yeah. So to think, what, I'm gonna pay some money for some money. Mm-hmm. It's a mindset shift, but you have to understand your exit pathway, and once you really understand the exit pathways and the timing to that, it's gotten me super comfortable with my next phase in life.
Yeah. That's good. So what would you say to somebody out there who maybe feels like, okay, this is all great what you're saying, but how do I get started? Like you said, it's a mind shift. Oh, but for instance, for me, when trying to run a marathon or trying to launch a business or whatever, I had to go through that mind shift phase where, like, can I really pull this off? And the best advice that I give people when they say like, how do you start a business? And I said, you just start it. Like it sounds really dumb to say that, but you don't know until you actually do it. Right. It's like, as silly as it sounds, like you have like this big, like, you have this huge pizza in front of you, this huge pizza, like, how am I going to eat this? Right. You take a bite and you start going to work. That's how you do it.
At the end of the day, you have to, you got to run full speed at the wall and figure out the tools to break down that wall. Yeah, and understand that there's going to be another wall on the other side of that wall that you might need another tool for. Right. So start running, start executing, and and understand that there's going to be risks, there's going to be problems. I work in a business where risk management is a big part of what we do, and so I attack everything from a risk perspective. What's the probability of X happening, and how can I mitigate that risk to where I feel comfortable with accepting it, avoiding it, ... project management principles. Shout out to anybody who's a PMI or who's gone through the PMI Institute. But overall, I'll drop this one tidbit. My brother, he's a super entrepreneur. He can do a lot of things. And, we were talking one day and he's like, I got this, he does a little bit of everything. So one of the things he does, he's got a windshield repair business, right? And so he's like, I'm doing, X number of windshields per month. I was like, well, if you really want to do it big, either bring in somebody to where you can get those windshields wholesale and have a bunch of windshields on deck and inventory, and then you have targets relative to how many you want to implant put in per month and ... Right. But the other part of, that's the second part of doing it big. The first part is marketing yourself. Right. You're doing all of this word of mouth, or you're potentially seeing people with cracked windshields and you're talking to them. That's important, relationship management, or just building relationships with customers. But the other part of it is go ahead and put it on Craigslist. Put up, figure out how much it costs to put out a radio ad, and bring in a part. And if you don't have the money to do that, find somebody who wants to give you the money to put out the radio ad, the newspaper ad, this, that, or the third. And his response was, "Oh man, but what happens when I can't fulfill all of those orders?" I was like, "That's a good problem to have."
It is, yes.
Right,
yes,
but there are a lot of people out there who are afraid of that good problem to have. Yeah. And the reality is, when you're in commodities type businesses, there's so many people out there in the world to where sky's the limit. And when you have that problem, you manage that customer the way that you manage them. You tell them you're sorry. You tell them, look, I'm going to get you on the appointment schedule list for next month. Sorry, it's not going to be this month. But the reality is they probably had that cracked windshield for 3 years. Oh, yeah. So it's like now you got the solution, and they're going to have to wait in line if you're that good. Yeah. So Absolutely. Don't be afraid of creating that line before, you're ready. And then, of course, speaking to the E-Myth, you should be focused on finding more people who know how to replace windshields, and then putting people on, and you growing their pockets. They're growing your pockets. And that's the principle of business.
Yeah, and I like how you said that's a good problem to have, because one of the things I've realized from launching something is that problems don't go away. They just look different. Right. You know, my earlier problems were like, how do I get my first client? Now my new problems is like, my new problems look like more of like, how do I contract somebody who can fulfill this big project? And it goes back to that, the saying, more money, more problems, the notorious B.I.G. line. As funny as it sounds, it's 100% true, because you're gonna when you're first starting out, they're gonna be smaller problems. Right. The larger you start scaling, like you were bringing up your brother's situation, they're gonna be larger problems. Right. So the early problems is like, how do I advertise? The later problem is gonna be, how do I hire somebody? Right. And do I have enough people? That type of thing, and how do I manage at that point? Right. And then after that, it could be, is my warehouse big enough? And then after that, it could be, we need to open a new place. Those type of things. So don't ever be afraid of problems. Don't ever be afraid of debt. It's just a matter of
being smart about it.
Yeah, being smart about it. Understanding how to pivot in the right direction, and using those things, I guess, or using those obstacles as trampolines to get you to the next situation. So, but yeah, Darren, man, it's been great. I know we're just gonna have a short conversation. We just got done having a 5K right now.
Good
so
5K,
I'm exhausted. It's been a while since I've ran. I've gone out for a run like this, so.